Was going to be a little bit of a chiller week leading into this podcast, but we got some big news. We got some Drew Holiday news. Kevin Durant is back. ESPN puts out their 25 under 25, and I'm pretty sure they were trying to be a little clickbaity with it. So we will dive into that. And then we also want to jump into the top teams in the Western Conference because, well, the top 25 under 25 will also lead us into that a little bit. But we want to dive into the top teams in the West because we've been getting some good showdowns and even getting a little testy if you want to take it to the Suns and Clippers game a little bit. I saw that there was a video going around today of Rondo and Chris Paul just staring each other down, and I was like, oh my God, they have to play each other in the playoffs. We need this. So either way, let's start off with.
Oh yeah, I mean Rondo referred to him as what 3 on Phoenix.
Exactly. So let
Yeah,
let's
something like that. It was real. It was real spicy.
Oh yeah. So let's jump into our first warm up jumper. And let's start off with Drew Holiday and the Bucks. They agreed to a 4-year max contract extension up to 160 million. His agent and all the NBA news putting that out there earlier in the week. Holiday has been great for the Milwaukee Bucks this season, averaging 17 points, about 5.5 assists per game. The defense is there. This kind of locks up Milwaukee's core. Giannis, Middleton, and Drew Holiday. That's going to be their guys going forward. It does give them a good big championship window. Is kind of what everyone was talking about. There was some worry when the Bucks kind of went all in is the word, but all in to get Drew because there was some concern that he wasn't going to sign again this year. It's a 1-year rental, and then you gave up so much to get him. But now he signs. You're good to go. It is worth mentioning the next few years they're going to have to pay a good amount of money for those 3 guys that we mentioned: Middleton, Holiday, and Giannis. 105 million next year, 113 in the 22-23 season, and 121 million in the 23-24 season. But I think it's worth mentioning all these guys right around 30 years old. Give or take a few years here or there. So it does kind of put their window in a good spot, and I think even though they may not have a ton of money like we were talking about, I think, for the next few years, you can probably attract a few free agents to Milwaukee with a lineup of Middleton, Holiday, and Giannis.
Yeah, you're going to at least be in the competition in the buyout market, and like you said, it's about locking the guys down. Like I think this Drew Holiday contract is, I mean, that's the splashy move they wanted to make after the exit last year. That's the type of move that you need to make in order to entice Giannis to stay long term. And so obviously that's the big important mission, is to get Giannis locked in. You've got Chris Middleton locked in, like you said, and now you can make the moves to solidify this core. I'm a little surprised that Drew Holiday got this much money. I mean, I was shocked at first. I mean, Drew Holiday is great. He's arguably the most underrated player in the NBA. But Drew Holiday is 30 years old. So I think that was my initial reaction was, whoa, that's a lot of money for a guy who could be 34 at the end of this contract. We'll want to see how that ages. But it's also the cost of doing business. Like, this is about the short term. It's about the Bucks going forward this year and next year. And like you said, trying to maximize that window. And so this is the Bucks, essentially tripling down with this third massive contract. Because like you said, it is going to cost them money. They're going to have to go into the tax. But this is this is them basically saying, hey, we think this core is good enough to win a championship, and we're going to certainly do everything possible to make sure they can.
Yeah, and that's what I like about it. They're not ever going to have the allure like LA or Miami, and we talk about that all the time. But I think there is, like you were saying, in the buyout market, when you're needing that next veteran or name just to kind of come in and contribute to give you that bench depth or wherever it may land, if there's an injury or something, like, being able to say, you'll come here, you're going to be in the playoffs, and we are going to be in contention for it. Expectations are to win it all. So, and when that's the expectations, and you have Giannis, Middleton, and Drew Holiday, like, yeah, there's going to be some players that are going to want to go there. So I think it's awesome. I get what you're saying with the 34 and Drew getting 4 years. I think this was the time to do it, right? Like, if he didn't do it now, it wasn't going to happen. Because any longer or any older, then you really start looking at it weird. So I think it was just perfect timing for everything to come together for him to get this contract. And I know people could, will probably be potentially, I don't want to say probably, but we could be, a little down the line criticizing this, on year 4 of the contract. But it's what you got to do to get this window going and keep your three key players together.
Yeah, it's the risk you have to take if you're Milwaukee. Drew Holiday is playing really well there. Again,
Hmm.
we mentioned the draft capital, but they gave up. But I mean, Drew Holiday is shooting a career high in effective field goal percentage. All his advanced numbers are great. I mean, his box plus minus is among the best it's been in his career. The defensive numbers are still great. His 3-point percentage is among the highest it's ever been in his career. So, I mean, he's been a good fit. We know what Drew Holiday provides. We know that he's going to be guarding a lot of teams' best player come playoff time. And, you hope that Drew Holiday is the push you need to get over. I think the biggest thing for the Bucks right now is to just make sure they're healthy. I think you got to just watch Giannis's knee soreness. I think you got to make sure you're all good to go for the playoffs. But, I mean, this team's proven that they can be a force when they're healthy. And so, I think this is the type of move that Milwaukee needs to make. You have to, when you've got this much invested, you need to go all in and see it through, or it's a complete waste.
And I will say, I forget where I saw the article. I saw the article the other day when we were doing a little bit of research for this topic in the Bucks and Holiday. And the article, I wish I could give credit to it, but the article was essentially saying the Bucks are in third place in the East, and they kind of just have to be okay with that. And
Hmm.
I think their point was to what you were saying. You don't want to rush anybody back. You want everybody to make sure they get the rest that they're going to get. And you don't want to, maybe ruin that potential of everyone being healthy going into the playoffs just to, pass the 76ers or the Nets in the standings, right? So the Bucks right now are 32 and 20. The Sixers are in second right now at 35, and then the Nets currently in first in the East at 36 wins. I think their point was you don't have to go on this massive run, although they are on a 3-game losing streak. You don't have to go on this massive run to solidify yourself a spot. I think third place is totally fine going into the playoffs. You look at fourth, fifth, and sixth. I mean, the Hornets, which is absolutely amazing that they're in fourth place right now in the West, but they have 27 wins. So you have a pretty decent, 4-game ish lead on these guys. More than that. I'm trying to do math in my head as we're going, but you have a decent lead on fourth place, so you have room to kind of falter and not necessarily put out your best basketball. And I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying I think I agreed with the articles saying don't worry about moving out of third place. Like you don't need to be in second. You don't need to be in first place.
I don't think you
And
need to be, but I mean, being in second doesn't matter. I think it's the first seed where it does. Whether I mean, and again, I don't think they're going to catch Brooklyn or Philly. They're 4 back. I mean, they're 3 back of Philly. They're 4 back of Brooklyn right now.
mhm,
I think where it matters. I mean, I guess it just depends how highly you value Miami. And I mean, Miami's got a couple of questions of their own now with Victor Oladipo, who they've got in the roster and is now going to miss their 4-game road trip essentially with knee pain. You know, we have to see what that's going to be. Oladipo did start to look great in the Miami fit, but we unfortunately got such a small sample size. Obviously, we hope Oladipo is going to be all right. I mean, the advantage to me for getting one is that you avoid either Milwaukee. Like, you don't have to play either Philly or Brooklyn in the second round. Like, you can only play one of them in the conference finals, likely.
mhm.
You're probably going to have to play a Boston or an Atlanta or a New York or a Charlotte or, somebody like that who I mean, Miami is the one where you obviously think they're a little bit better. You give them the respect given where
Of
they were
course.
last year, of how good Jimmy Butler is, and the fact that when they get, if ideally they're healthy, I do think they're in that
I
level as well with Milwaukee and Philly and Brooklyn. It's just if for some reason Miami can't get clicking, I do think there's a difference between a big difference who you're going to have to play in the second round versus if you're that second or third seed
it's true.
that you're going to have to play either Philly or Brooklyn. But I get your point saying their long-term health is what's going to matter towards making any run, and you shouldn't just completely exhaust the reserves and empty your tanks trying to get a 1 seed so you can flame out in the playoffs. Like, I don't think that's necessarily the right
Right.
call either.
I would also maybe put the Celtics in that list with the Heat that you were talking about. That might be better than the team that you're playing that you would think you would be playing in potentially a seventh seed.
Yeah, I mean, I know I keep wanting to, but I don't know. I keep waiting for the Celtics squad to turn it on, and they just don't. And I mean,
Yeah,
that's nothing against Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They've both been phenomenal. We'll get into Jason Tatum a little bit later, but I don't know. They have too many issues on the interior for me, even with Robert Williams playing some good ball for them.
yeah.
And I mean, Walker's decline has been a little real this season. So I don't know. It feels like that team just doesn't play with energy. It looks like they were 2 years ago when they played with Kyrie, and only there's no Kyrie to blame it on this time, and that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. So, congrats to Drew Holiday and the Bucks. I think it's a good move. It's a move
Yeah,
that
good for
had to
Drew getting
happen.
paid. Yeah, Drew's been awesome a long time. That's good for him getting paid.
Yes, and so the other or another one of our warm up jumpers that we wanted to hit, KD officially back. We've got a
Mm.
1 game sample of it, but it was a win over the Pelicans. On the 7th, I believe, if I have that right. He played 18 minutes, dropped 17 points, had 5 assists, 7 rebounds. Did have 6 turnovers. I think he had 2 turnovers like immediately in the beginning of the game just to kind of get it started. So you wonder if that was just like getting back into it a little bit. But the only thing I've gotten with Brooklyn is we just can't get all 3 of those guys on the court right now because now James Harden's injured, and it's like, man, oh man. While I think their talent is going to be good enough to not have a problem with it, you don't want to be figuring each other out still, or figuring out your way to play or how you want to do it go while the playoffs are happening.
Yeah, and I mean that's the biggest concern if you have one. Now I'll follow that
Hmm.
up by saying, like you hinted at, I don't really think it's that big of a concern.
Right.
Like I still think Brooklyn is the favorite to win the Eastern Conference. I think even if these 3 guys don't play together, it doesn't quite matter. But it's the health thing overall. We get Kevin Durant back, and obviously he's going to be taking it slow, and as they should
Hmm.
be taking it slow to get him ready for the playoffs. But it's like, you've had James Harden dealing with this nagging hamstring issue for the past couple of weeks. We know how difficult hamstrings. I mean, ask James Harden about what a hamstring injury can do when it happens to Chris Paul and it potentially derails your upset of the Warriors.
Hmm.
You know, this is again, the biggest worry for me with Brooklyn, if I have a worry, is them not being healthy come playoff times. If they're
Yeah.
healthy come playoff time, I think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, and I think they have an extremely real chance to mess around and win the whole
Bet.
thing this year. If
I
they're
was gonna
not
say,
healthy, all of a sudden those other teams look a whole lot better. Like I don't think if they're not fully healthy, I don't know that they're a favorite over the Sixers and the Bucks and the Heat and run it down.
would you say? And I don't think it's too far out to say this, but would you say if they're all healthy, they're the best team in the NBA?
No, I still think the Lakers are the best team in the NBA if
Wow.
everybody's
Okay.
healthy. I do. I think the Nets can't play defense the way I think the Lakers will be able to slow them down just a little bit. I think
Hmm.
Anthony Davis would feast on the inside in that matchup, and I just like the Lakers' depth a lot. Like obviously having that extra star player matters, and I think Brooklyn's got great depth as well. But I mean, the Lakers to me are running back a title team that only got better. I mean, you've got Andre Drummond in the mix now, which allows you to bring Marcus Gasol off the bench, like going out and getting Dennis Schroeder in the offseason, I thought was a really good pickup for them. So, and then even with the buyout market, like getting a guy like Ben McLemore, it's just like the rich keep getting richer, adding
Hmm.
him, and we'll talk a little more buyout market in
Well,
a little bit as well later on. But this is a situation where I do think that these 2 teams are the best teams in the NBA if fully healthy.
I can get behind that. I think I don't know. It's hard to say because I think if you just take Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, healthy, obviously, I don't know how you compete offensively against those, and that's what I'm worried about. Yeah, you might be able to slow them down, but can you slow them down enough? Is where my question would be with all of that, because they're just gonna be pouring it on. I think so. Either way, I do think that's going to be potentially a fun matchup, depending on where it gets. I know I'll be a little bit disappointed because that means the Sixers aren't there. Which, by the way, I did see that right as we started the podcast. Anthony Tolliver headed to the Sixers in the buyout market. So
Yeah, that's a good sign. I mean, he can shoot the basketball. So at the end of I'm a little surprised Anthony Tolliver is a free agent. Anthony Tolliver, according to Woj, has also played for 15 NBA teams, which is pretty
wow,
awesome. You should just go for all 30 at this point. I mean,
yeah,
he's 35 years old, obviously. So definitely been around the block. Look, see, he can shoot the basketball. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. The Sixers
that's what
need
the
guys
Sixers want.
off the bench. So yeah, bring him in. Good vet in the locker room. Like, yeah, that's a simple, easy, successful signing for me already.
Yeah, and then the last topic, a little non NBA topic, and Kevin, you'll be able to speak on this a little bit more. I did listen to DMX growing up, but I assume you probably did more than I did because I know me and my music preferences kind of were all over the place as a kid. But yeah, DMX passing away at the age of 50, age of 50.
Yeah, yeah, 50 years
Um,
old.
Super sad news. I'm sure, you know, you were following along with the news because it was about a week ago that it came out that he was in the hospital
Yeah.
with what they thought was a drug overdose, which led to a heart attack.
Mhm.
And so then for the week that they were talking about that he was on, like a life support, and then there were rumors that he was out, and then his agent or manager came out and was saying, like, the night before all the news came out saying that he passed away, had come out and was like, hey, leave the family alone, he's alive,
Yeah.
everything's okay. And so you just kind of look at it from an outsider's perspective, and the family's just trying to go through whatever they're going through, and obviously that's tough. And then you just have a public that's been so touched by somebody, or have fond memories of his music, his acting, whatever you want to, link it to, and they just want to know what's going on. And I'm sure that's a difficult situation to go through.
Yeah, I mean, it's the adage that you want to make sure you're right. You don't want to just rush to
Of
break
course.
something because that actually can cause pain and stuff. But I mean, I think, I mean, DMX obviously it's a devastating loss for hip hop in the sense that,
Hmm.
just like you mentioned, the passion, the emotion that he touched so many people with. So many just hilarious, funny DMX stories over the years of just all the random antics that he's been involved in. I mean, this is a guy who, I mean, he put out two #1 albums in the same year with It's Dark and Hell Is Hot and Flesh of My Flesh. So you have those first two albums. That's something that we haven't really seen like that in hip hop before. It's the fact that, I mean, he was arguably the biggest, if not the biggest in the world at one point in the late 90s. I mean, really the peak of his run from 98 all the way through probably '04, I would say. And then is where it started to die down a little bit, and that's the unfortunate other side is that he just never could beat these demons. He
Yeah.
talked about it where he got introduced to drugs at a young age, unfortunately, and it's something that he struggled with that had landed him in prison, that had unfortunately caused his untimely demise at 50 years old. Is that he was unfortunately unable to beat those demons, and so I hope that now wherever he is that he's not dealing with that anymore.
Right.
Um, Obviously musically there's so much to say. I mean, It's Dark as Hell Is Hot is one of my favorite hip hop albums of all time. Just hit after hit. I mean, one of the things that so during the pandemic, obviously Versus has taken off, where you've had these hip hop artists and these R&B artists and producers and all these other set up by Swiss Beats and Timberland who they've just had these matchups, they've had these battles, and for a while when people weren't going outside, it was great. You got to just celebrate the music. It was something to do. But this is something that is still is still ongoing. One of the great ones last year that I remember watching and watching the clips of was Snoop Dogg versus DMX, and obviously with the dog theme, and but it was just just fun to see all that music truly get its love, to get its attention, and to kind of have its moment again, where we could all appreciate the 20 plus years of music that DMX had given us. And so, obviously this is a massive tragedy, and thoughts to the family and everybody else who's affected and the fans. For me, I mean, this for in terms of people I'd listen to, like this is right there with Prodigy and Chester Bennington from Linkin Park for me, where it's just like, oh my God, like I actually listen to these people's music. This is crazy.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously we're going to be hearing a lot fun. It's super awesome. There were so many other moments like that. Just incredible interview moments on the Breakfast Club that just made you laugh, and that's what it's sad. And there will be plenty of tributes coming out the next couple of days, and we've already heard from the family and a lot of people close to him, but definitely a big loss in the music world. We're gonna miss DMX for sure.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And there was a lot. I mean, what was it? Prince Philip too. Right?
Yeah, Prince
Didn't he
Philip
pass
died
away too?
over. Yeah, Prince Philip died in England as
I
well. He was 99. Queen Elizabeth's husband, so
Well,
obviously they were
and
together
so
for a long time.
I saw a few people on TikTok making videos about whatever's going on, and There was one that was like, wonder what Prince Philip and DMX are talking about while waiting in to get into
Oh
heaven. I was
yeah,
like, that's a weird conversation.
that was Kerry Washington's tweet, and it was just like, wait, what are we doing here? Like I don't know about that. It got deleted. She got flamed so
Oh,
bad by
did she?
some
Okay,
people. Oh
because
yeah, no, it was just like
I was
what's
like,
the angle here?
and then there was another one that was like, the person was pretending to be the person that's letting people into heaven, essentially. And he's standing there looking, and all of a sudden you start hearing dog barking, and he looks up, he's like, "Who's barking?" And it turns around, and then it shows, it's like, who did he? It was like Tupac. There was like two other people that they had there, and they're all like, you see them stand up, and they're like, oh, and DMX is walking up doing the dog barking. And I was just like, you guys take it too far sometimes, but
Yeah, it's just never a dull moment. The internet can
yeah,
just. There's just always some. Everybody's trying to outdo each other on the
of
internet, and
course,
that's the problem. I also hate the people who are like, "Oh, well, I didn't realize you were a DMX fan until he passed away." It's like, no, that's just when everybody collectively comes out to appreciate somebody. Like, it
right,
shouldn't always be that way. And I don't think it always was for DMX, obviously, but it's like I hate those type of that happens anytime a musician passes away, where it's just like, oh, you're a fan named X amount of songs, and it's just like, no, can we all just appreciate like, any, or even if you weren't a fan, like, if this what
yeah,
takes you, if you go back and you listen more later, it's what it's all about. Like, it's not supposed to be a contest. Like, music's supposed to be
right,
about just enjoying
yeah.
yourselves and making people feel good.
I
That's
know.
what we're all about too.
There's just like
My
a,
bad. Go ahead.
there's like that group of people that like to say they found that artist, they found this, like that underground vibe, and I get it,
Yeah, the
but
losers.
well, yeah, and that can be the case
I'll say
sometimes
it.
too.
That's fine. I think it's ridiculous. It's just like, just grow up. Like,
Yeah.
just let people celebrate. You gotta let people enjoy things.
Hmm.
Welcome everybody to the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rafuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Zion is different. Hashtag I'm a fan.
I mean, he is, and I mean, certainly there is no one in the NBA who plays like Zion. I'll say that. Like, his brand of, like I said, the analogy that I've always been using for years is that he's a dancing bear. Like, there's no reason a dude that big should be able to just pick and choose his spots he is, but his just footwork is outrageous. And I mean, we got full display. The Pelicans beat the Sixers last night. I was watching that game. Zion, obviously, a big part of that, just was phenomenal.
Hmm.
He's just like a Mack truck in transition, but the dude is awesome. But New Orleans obviously is a good one there. I don't know if it's someone on New Orleans or not. I know Josh Hart just got hurt recently, so is he tweeting and watching the game?
No, but you were right to stay with the Pelicans. That was Lonzo Ball.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, listen, I'd want to play. I'd be excited to be playing with Zion too and throwing him lobs on the break. It could be a whole lot of fun.
Hmm.
I know it necessarily. I don't think it's been the season that Pelicans fans have looked for, but I think having Zion be healthy and just seeing exactly why this kid was hyped to be the prospect that he is definitely been really fun to watch. He's going to be a force in this league for a long time. There's nothing else to say. I love watching his game. It's beautiful.
Hmm. I agree, and we'll get into more about him obviously with ESPN's 25 under 25. He is on the list. I won't give away where he is, but you can probably imagine he's pretty high on that list. So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely excited for Zion.
Okay, so leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We will read them on the podcast. If you are not an Apple user, of course, you can find us anywhere you can find a podcast: Stitcher, Google Play Store, Amazon Music, Spreaker, TuneIn, Player FM. If you like podcasts, we're there.
And we are up to four, count them, four subscribers on
Bam.
our YouTube page. So,
Shout Stewart, shout to Andrew.
yep, Stuart and Andrew, number three, number four. So we appreciate you guys, and if you want to join the YouTube ranks, it's just video versions of the podcast. We might get down the line, we might get some new content going as well. But for now, it's just video versions of the podcast. So you can subscribe there. Make sure you check us out, and if you want, then you can support there as well. Just search Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube, and you can find us. It's pretty simple.
And now a word from our sponsors.
So the ESPN 25 under 25 list came out. I believe it was Tuesday that it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I know First Take was talking all about it. So, if I were to name you, I will name you the top 5. Have you seen this list, by the way?
So I've seen it in pieces. I've
Mm,
seen it kind of like I know Luca's number one, for example.
okay. Then never mind. I was going to have you try to guess the top 5, but I'll just read them off.
Yeah, let's just run
Um,
it off for everybody.
yep. Number 1 on the entire list of all of it is Luca. He is
Okay.
22 years old. And we can get into reasons and stuff like that later. Number 2 is Zion at 20 years old. Number 3, LaMelo Ball at 19. Number 4 comes in Donovan Mitchell at 24. So I guess he technically only has one more year for this list.
Yep.
And then right after that, number 5, Jason Tatum will round out your top 5. Personally, um, I think you could make an argument, and it almost goes back to what we were talking about before we took a break, that Zion might be over Luca in the way that he's just so different, and you don't necessarily know how the NBA is going to adjust to that. Where Luca, obviously putting up monster numbers. I mean, 28.6 points, 8 rebounds, almost 9 assists this season. Career high 48.8 field goal percentage, 37 from 3, which is always a step up for Luca. So I'm not saying Luca shouldn't be number 1, but I feel like you could probably make a pretty decent compelling argument for Zion to be number 1.
Oh, see, I'm actually surprised that that's where you were offended. Like, I get it, and I think Zion's potential is there, but no, Luca is easily number one to me. It's not even
Mm-hmm.
close. I mean, the only time he wouldn't have been number one is when Giannis was still on this list, because Giannis was the
That's
king of
fair.
this list for like 6 years or whatever it was. No, Luca is already a top 10 NBA player. Like Zion might be, but to me, it's the potential argument over what they already are. Like Luca
Well,
already is a top three NBA player, or
and
excuse me, a top 10 NBA player, not top three. I'm not
and
going that far.
and I
But I
guess,
think to me, he already is that. Like Zion might be Luca, but Luca already is Luca.
well, and I guess the way that we have to look at this list too, because I've gone a few different directions when I've looked at this list. So this list is a yearly thing. They come out with it every single year.
Right.
But the vibe on the list is like down the line where these guys are going to be, right? Like how we project them and how we think they're going to do. So I look at it like, oh, well, Zion could potentially project to have more of an NBA changing game than Luca does, depending on how things go.
Hmm.
But again, there's going to be a list next year. So do I take it any further than just this one year down the line? I'm not. I struggle with that on how to approach it because yes, I agree. Luca is definitely the best one on this list in terms of numbers right now. But are we supposed to be projecting down the line where we think like,
Well, yeah, it's who's got the high ceiling and who doesn't. Because if we're going
yeah,
off who's the best player right now, then there's no planet where Donovan
right,
Mitchell and Jason Tatum are behind
right,
Zion and Lamelo Ball. Now, I
right.
think do they have higher upsides? Sure, maybe. I think Zion maybe does more than Lamelo, and I love Lamelo. Don't get me wrong. But I don't. I mean, Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell are really good. Donovan Mitchell is the key offensive piece on the best team record-wise in the Western Conference right now. Jason Tatum, I know Boston's been a bit of a letdown this year, but it ain't Jason Tatum's fault. I mean, we'll get into him again a little bit preview, but again, there's no. It's tough because again, it is about the approach to me. I think Lamelo Ball over Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum is ridiculous, and I think Lamelo's been awesome and should win Rookie of the Year this year.
But
And I think
yeah,
Lamelo's potential is extremely high because he's 19 years old, and I just imagine what happens once he really. I mean, I didn't think he was going to be good this year. I thought Lamelo was more of a potential play always. The fact that he is able to make this much of an impact in Charlotte pre-injury already and be the clear favorite for Rookie of the Year, like I think there should be a lot of excitement there. Like Lamelo Ball wasn't that can't miss prospect that Zion was pending health. Like Zion, we all knew like had that super special potential, and that's where to me you could maybe argue him over Donovan Mitchell or Jason Tatum. Again, if I'm drafting a team, if this is a fantasy draft, if I'm an expansion team, if I'm picking the second or third, I would take Mitchell and Tatum over Zion at this point, just given the body of work that I have from both of them. But if you want to view this from a potential thing, then I could get Zion at two because Zion already is awesome as well. I don't think on my list I would have him over those two, but I understand the thinking.
well. Yeah, I agree with you. LaMelo at 3, while yes, he played for the short bit that he played,
It's
was his
reactionary.
right, was historic, but it's very, like you were saying, reactionary. I mean, yes, you saw the vision, you saw his ability to score, the creativity, the touch, like all that. You had that, but why would that put him like again, I guess like you were saying, it's kind of the vision of where it can be, but if you're saying the same thing, if you're using that argument, like you said, for Donovan and Tatum, I mean, how could you not put them higher? With Donovan, he's only 24 years old. Like you said, the leading scorer on the NBA's best team. His three-pointer has stepped up. His playmaking has stepped up. Like, even, we saw it in the bubble and we're seeing it this year. Like, I don't know why he wouldn't, honestly, don't know why he wouldn't have been number, like, potentially 2. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, and just no, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with you. My bad not to interrupt, but I was going to say we're not even at the really the most offensive part of the list to me. Like, I mean,
yeah,
we might as well just finish it off. But I mean, Devin Booker being eighth is absolutely
yeah.
outrageous. Like that's an unserious ranking to me.
That was someone that went you know what that was, because this has happened to me before,
As
and
someone
this
who
is
hasn't watched Phoenix ever,
well
just
that,
straight up.
but it's also, and again, this is where Phoenix can claim the West Coast bias and all that stuff a little bit as well. But it's one of those things where they made a full list, right? They made their whole list, and then they went, "Oh shoot, we forgot Donovan, or we forgot Devin Booker." It's like crap. We got to put him in somewhere, and they're like, all right, well, let's just put him right in front of Ben Simmons, or right after Ben Simmons, and then they move on. Ben Simmons, by the way, first time out of the top 5 since 2018. He's at 7th. Um, and but again, when we talk about this list, like we say, it's like where, if you're going to tell me someone should be in the top 5, who do you take out? I think with Booker, you probably, the way I would have it would be, say Luca and Zion are untouchable at 1 and 2. Fine, we don't have to argue that. But I'd probably bump Donovan up to 3, and then Booker and Tatum would be right in there for me. For that 4 and 5, whichever one you wanted to do, sure, make the argument. But like his team went from like a lottery team, lucky just to win, and they had to win out in the bubble to get really close to it. Some other things just didn't fall in their favor. To now, they're just, oh my gosh, good.
Yeah.
And he scored 30 plus in 13 games. He had a 45 the other day against Chicago. He's averaging career high in steals, so there might be an underrated defensive side of this that people aren't talking about. So, I definitely think he should be a lot higher on this list.
No, I mean, I think absolutely. I mean, I would argue just do we want to just read this whole list so that way I can kind of tell you who I'd move around, or let's just
Sure.
run through the rest of the 25 real quick.
Okay, hold on. Well, let me pull it up real quick because I gotta grab it. ESPN's site, but the ones that I marked as egregious, that we can get going on. The 3 that I marked that were outside of the top 5. I said Ben Simmons seemed kind of surprising that he was at 7, but that might be me being a little Sixers biased.
De'Aaron Fox is at 6, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, there's no planet where De'Aaron Fox is ahead of Ben
Hmm.
Simmons or Devin Booker, and I love De'Aaron Fox's game, and there's no planet where LaMelo Ball's ahead of either of them either.
That's fair. And then Devin Booker at 8, like we said. John Morant's at 15. He was number 4 last year. And what they said on ESPN's list is Morant hadn't made the superstar leap that he was expecting yet, shooting just 25 from beyond the arc, with a 37% effective field goal percentage. But the fact that Morant has the Grizzlies in the playoff hunt speaks to his winning impact, was essentially what they were talking about. But that's another one that I was like, I feel like if you're talking about star leap, I think there's a difference between star leap in the numbers wise and star leap in terms of who the media will focus on. I feel like I'm seeing a dunk from Ja Morant every single night. Like
Yeah,
on ESPN's top 10 or whatever he's doing. Like, I feel like I'm seeing that all the time.
yeah. I mean, I do think though that shooting concern is valid. I mean,
Of
I want
course.
to again in the context of the whole list, it feels pretty drastic to go from 4 to 15. I mean, John Morant. It's not like he's fallen off a cliff either. Like that makes it
Right.
kind of seem like the Grizzlies are in the playoff hunt. Like he's the big reason why.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And with Ja, I guess I'd have to what maybe I'll have to try to do is see if I can find their list from last year and see how much has changed, because really there's not many like new players. I mean, Lamelo would be the first one making the appearance on this list. Everyone else probably was on it last year, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
trying to
I don't
log
really
in.
know
This
what
is
other rookies from this year would be. I mean, as good as Tyrese Halliburton's been, I mean, Patrick Williams has had moments, Anthony Edwards has had moments, but I don't think I'm ready to necessarily, you know, I mean, Halliburton's on the list, right?
Halliburton is. I'm trying to. I'm ESPN is not cooperating like literally at all. I've never seen a website run so slow. Um, but I don't recall seeing his name. But again, I only grabbed the top 5 players. And if ESPN wanted to cooperate and not freeze every 5 seconds, I would be able to log in and tell you this whole list.
Yeah, Halliburton is 21 on the list.
Okay.
And he's ahead of John Collins, Lonzo Ball, and Colin Sexton, which is pretty interesting. Now, Halliburton's been all like to me, he's been clearly the second best rookie this year. He's been an absolute gem of a find for Sacramento. I do like De'Aaron Fox being six is crazy. Like I'm sorry, there's no like De'Aaron Fox is not better than Ben Simmons or Devin Booker. He's just not. And I love De'Aaron Fox. Like De'Aaron Fox should be like right there at eighth. I would argue to me, you could. It's tough because it's a potential thing. Like De'Aaron Fox is better than Lamelo Ball right now. The question is, I don't know that he will be long term. Um, but De'Aaron Fox isn't the reason that Sacramento has been disappointing this year either.
Yeah, but could it be? Could like so we use the Devin Booker argument, right? The West Coast bias a little bit. Could that also be our West Coast bias with the Kings?
No, I think because it's no, not remotely. Because I don't think there's any bias here. I think the biggest bias is against Devin Booker because people just for 4 years thought Devin Booker was bad because Phoenix just didn't have anybody around him, and now that Phoenix has got somebody around him, it's completely the Chris Paul effect. Like Devin Booker didn't have them winning 8 games in the bubble last year that were all do or die situations. Like obviously that's not to downplay Chris Paul. Like ESPN had a stat about the winning percentage of every team that Chris Paul has been to significantly going up. Like obviously he's a big part of Phoenix being competitive, but Devin Booker's been good. The people who were always thought Devin Booker was just this inefficient shot chucker just weren't watching Phoenix. And I get it because they stunk at the time, but it's like watch a little bit of it.
Right. Well, and that's the case. That's what I'm telling you. When I tell you I've never been more frustrated with a website in my entire life.
There's no dice at all. It's not happening, huh?
Dude, oh my god, it's
Oh, ESPN are also terrorists, by the way, for putting Zach Lowe's 10 things behind a paywall. That is just straight up wrong under any circumstance.
you're gonna get me going on a whole kind of tangent on this stuff, but I now they logged me out.
Oh, they logged you out of ESPN Plus.
I'm gonna break something. So we're
All
just
right.
gonna.
Well, we don't need to worry about that then. It's egregious that Booker's that low. Donovan Mitchell should be higher. Jason Tatum should be higher. Honestly, this is a click. I like. It's kind of a clickbait list in a little bit. Like if
Mhm.
you've got Lamelo Ball at 3, as much as I love Lamelo's game, I don't really kind of think it's that serious. Devin Booker at 8, also kind of. Again, it's just an unserious list. Um, but definitely know. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know if we're completely off here or not. But I do think Luka's clear one. I don't have anything to argue with there. I think Luka being this good already to me shows he's a lock. It's crazy again that Giannis was on it as long as he was as well. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad. So balling for me this week, I have a pair of 50-point games. Of course, it goes back to Jason Tatum, 53 points, the youngest player in Celtics history to have that. And of course, Zach LaVine as well for Chicago. He had 39 points in the first half. That's why, in a way, I almost was stunned that he just ended with 50. But yeah, 250 pieces in the same night. By the way, tweet us 50 piece at Drive and Dish NBA, at me, at Refuse to Lose, and at Justin C on the air. Tag us in all three of that, and we at random will pick somebody who tweets us 50 piece this week to send you a $25 NBA store gift card. So again,
Well,
50 piece. Tweet us 50 piece.
so they
Piece.
can't so they can't spell out 50 like if I.
If you want to spell it FIFTY, sure, but I don't really know why you do that. But yes, tweet the three of us. You got to tweet the podcast account at Driving Dish NBA, at me at Refuse to Lose, and at Justin C on the air. Tweet the three of us, just 50 piece. I don't care if it's in a sentence. If you just tweet us that, whatever it may be, and we'll pick somebody at random. We're gonna do this the next couple of weeks. We're gonna do this for a couple of phrases. We got a couple. We got 5 of these to give away. We're gonna give away one this episode, and obviously continue for the next couple.
Hmm.
But yeah, somebody at random will get chosen to get a $25 NBA store gift card this week.
I dig it. I dig it. 50 piece. Yeah. Which, by the way, I knew you were hinting at the fact that you were going to talk about the 50 pointer in
Yeah, I
balling.
kind of gave it away with talking Tatum twice.
But the
So
problem is, and when you said that, I was like, man, I really should look up another one real quick because I had Tatum as well because
oh yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
now the youngest, like you were saying, youngest to do it since Larry Bird. So we'll just double down on the 50 piece for Jason Tatum in our balling.
Yeah, I was gonna say get the. I should have. Well, I was if I coordinated with you ahead of time, I would have let you do Tatum, and I just would have done Zach LaVine afterwards, and we could have hit both. But
Oh well.
yeah, shout to both those guys. Definitely hooping this year. There was some. I forget which columnist it was on Boston. It was one of the talking radio heads, but it was just like Jason Tatum was overrated, and we need to trade him. And I was just like, fam, like
Dude,
why does all boomer sports radio does this? It's crazy because they do it in Philly at WIP all the time. Like anybody who's remotely good in Philadelphia athletics is just if you haven't been a subject of a trade rumor on talk radio up there or on the Fanatic as well, like
mm-hmm.
it's just like a rite of passage at this point. But it's just hilarious to me. It's like, yo, appreciate what you got, Boston.
Appreciate what you got, Boston, because remember what you traded down from. You would have taken Markel
Yeah,
Fultz, number one.
yeah.
That
I
trade,
mean,
I don't think. I mean, we probably don't want to appreciate the fleecing that was as much as probably Boston fans do. But man, oh man, when you look at it now,
well, yeah, in hindsight, it's a fully fleecing. Like, I do maintain that trade doesn't bother me as much as other Sixers moves at the time. Like, the biggest one that bothers me still was Mikal Bridges for Jair
yeah,
Smith and for
yeah,
another pick, just because it was completely unnecessary. And, like, that's what bothers me about that is, like, Bridges was a perfect fit. He was a Philly guy. Like, it just made all the sense for the type of player that we need on this
he was
roster.
he
And then they
was
just went and did that for Jair Smith, who didn't even end up really playing at all. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's not even in the league at this point.
and Bridges, who by the way got traded mid interview about being on the Sixers. So that was
Right. Like that's the one that bought the Markel Fultz thing. I mean, again, I maintain that if Markel Fultz hits, and he was the consensus number one pick at
he
the
was.
time, and if he hits, he would have been exactly what they needed to pair with Ben and Joel. Like, I understand the logic of making the play for Markel Fultz. Like, that was the dude. Obviously, I'm happy for him that he's made a little bit of a career here in Orlando and is a part of their future and is going to get a shot that he didn't just completely flame out of the league. But I mean, yeah, obviously in hindsight, of course there's no planet where I would have done that.
Yeah.
You would have made Boston test and see if they were actually going to take Tatum over number one overall like they said they were going to after they made the deal, of course. But yes, all right, falling for me this week, I've got Patrick Beverly. He's going to be out 3 or 4 weeks. He broke his hand. It looks like when he was, I believe it was in play against Phoenix the other night. I mean, just really rough overall with these injuries everywhere for the Clippers. I mean, it just seems like they're another one. I mean, we talked about Brooklyn a little bit at the beginning, where just every time they get healthy, something happens. That's exactly what's going on here. It feels like with the Clippers.
Yeah, with I mean, but I mean, I don't know. I guess where do you see the Clippers at right now as a team as a whole? Because like, yes, Patrick Beverly's hurt, and he's gonna be out 3 4 weeks. He should be back for the playoffs. But like,
hmm
so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, does this affect anything in the way that we think they'll approach the playoffs?
No, because I think no, he'll come back for the playoffs. Like basically, this will put him out for the rest of the regular season. So I don't think it really changes their approach at all. I mean, where do I think the Clippers are at? I mean, they've won 4 straight. They're 8-2 in their last 10. Rondo already looks like a great pickup for them. I mean, it'll get us into our next topic eventually once we finish this segment. But the only reason it's tougher for me to project the Clippers as the clear like Western Conference Finals favorites against the Lakers, ideally assuming their health, is just because of how good these other teams are. And we'll get into again with Utah, with Phoenix, with Denver, even with Portland. Like there's nobody soft there. And as good as I think the Clippers are playing right now, and I do have, to me, I believe in this current Clippers roster a little more than I do last year. Like, I really like that Rondo move a lot. I like some of the bench moves they made. I think Ibaka will be great for them come playoff time. You can play him a little more than you could play Harrell, in my opinion. But, I mean, I think they're at least going to the second round, put it that way. I know
Yeah.
that's probably not what they want to hear, but I think it projects pretty well, even still with the Beverly injury. Like, I think they could very well win the conference if everything goes right.
Yeah, I think everything goes if everything goes right, they can still win it. I just feel like the hype for them has gotten so low, whether it's between the injuries or the play. And I guess maybe their standings reflect that a little bit, but it's like even though the Lakers have been injured and not putting out their best lineups, the hype around them hasn't fallen as much as it feels like it has for the Clippers.
No. Well, it's because they're missing their two best players. Like the Clippers have
Yeah,
Kawhi and Paul
yeah,
George, and I mean that's the question. And the problem with the Clippers is going to be because of last year and how spectacularly they flamed out, and how bad they've been at clutch times at some points in this regular season, where they just have these mind blowing losses where it's like, wait, what is happening here? They're gonna. No, like no one is going to buy into the Clippers necessarily until they do it come playoff time. Like the Clippers are in kind of that prove it mode more than a Utah is, more than a Denver is, more than, you know, the Clippers have expectations. Like their expectations in probably in that locker room and in that building is not just to win the conference, to win the finals. Like
yeah,
they feel like they have a date with the Lakers coming. But again, this does need to be given Paul George's last few playoffs, given what played out and what transpired against Denver last year. They are in prove-it mode, and unfortunately, the only way for them to put those narratives aside is to win in the playoffs. And so
yeah.
they probably won't have that hype for the rest of the regular season, even if they win out, because it's just going to be, again, do it in the playoffs.
Agreed. And so my fallen is going to be three separate things. The first one, it's going to be me
I fall it.
because we were 2 for 2 on taking each other's balling and falling today. I had Patrick Beverly, who also was going under a surgery, like you were saying. And then I'll add to it that their most common lineup was Serge Ibaka, Batum, Patrick Beverly, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard. Played almost 264 minutes, had a net rating of 16.7. They've got 14 wins and 5 losses when using that lineup. So it is one of their most used and probably one of their better lineups. So you wonder where Rondo kind of fits into that and see how that goes. But yeah, that was my first one because you stole that one a little bit.
Well, I guess if we want to give you credit here, I mean, do you need another one? Did you see that report that Larry Nance lost like 20 pounds in a week?
No,
So Larry Nance has missed the last 5 games for Cleveland, and I don't. It's not COVID, but he's been dealing with an illness of some sort, and apparently it's just. I mean, it's astounding, honestly. Like I mean, 20 pounds in a week.
is
Like
a lot.
obviously, when you're sick, you lose weight because you're just not eating right. You're hopefully not throwing up, but you could be doing that. Like you're losing fluids. Like I understand all that, but holy hell, 20 pounds. Like that is like he's got to almost like take some time to get his body right. Like
Yeah.
forget the illness. Like once you beat that, it's almost like you got to completely like hit the gym and almost reevaluate a little bit before you come back.
Yeah, I know selfishly, I don't know what he has, and hopefully it's not like a life threatening thing.
Justin,
But,
Justin,
dude,
Justin.
I got a wedding coming up. I could lose a few
Damn.
pounds.
Oh my God, Nicole is going to kill you if you are just totally obliterated. Because if you whatever you have to lose 20 pounds in a week, like I don't think you're getting married next week if that happens, champ.
No, that wouldn't happen. It wouldn't work out well. But I'll tell you what, too. Once you lose 20 pounds in a week, I bet you that first beer hits way different. You know what I
Oh yeah,
mean?
for
Because
sure.
you've got 20 pounds off you now. That thing's gonna feel a little different. So the other two fallens that I grabbed while I was panicking and trying to find another one was Zach Levine, who we did already talk about in our ballin, but a reporter told him you need 37 more 50-point games to tie Michael Jordan. Zach Levine's response: "That dude is a ghost. He's a myth."
I mean, yeah, I mean it's true. Like you're not going to get. I mean, it's one of those things where it's essentially an unbreakable record. Like I forget what was it, the 50-point games too with Wilt versus everyone else. Is it's
Oh, I
just
don't.
like you're not even
Yeah,
in the stratosphere.
you're not even
Like
gonna
what
get
was it?
close.
like we had Dame, who it feels like we talked about the last 7 seasons, just does this on the regular. Guys like Dame and guys like Steph Curry and guys like Klay Thompson and KD who can just get buckets without even blinking. And MJ is way ahead of everyone. Like MJ is in the high 30s, I believe, which is astounding in itself. And then you've got Will Chamberlain, who's up at like 115 or something like that. And it's just like, oh, okay, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Will literally had the craziest stats of probably anybody you could look for in NBA history, and they won't be
Yeah.
matched ever again. I mean, it's just
No.
we won't see anything like that.
Well,
All right.
and well, hold on. I got one
Oh,
more
we got one more.
fallen. I
Oh, you
got
got
one
one
more.
more. Okay. Okay.
One more fallen going out to the Orlando Magic. We're just gonna double tap the Orlando Magic here a little bit. The longest winning streak in Aaron Gordon's career has finally happened, which is 7 games, and it is the 7 games he's played with the Nuggets because the Nuggets have won 8 straight. So congratulations to Aaron Gordon, and also a little bit of a sadness for Orlando.
It's sad, but I was gonna say, I was like, have you watched Orlando recently? I was like, I tweeted the other night, and I was talking about this with Keith Smith and Josh Everly. Like, they're allergic to tanking. That team plays way too hard, and I mean, you've got some good stuff coming out of it too. Obviously, with Chuma Okeke playing great, and they're gonna get Cole Anthony back in the lineup. So if you have young guys that are leading the
Yeah.
way, you can't really be upset about that. But for anyone who was more of a proponent of just fully going in the blender and hoping to catch Detroit and Minnesota and Houston, Orlando's playing hard, and you thought they were
Eh,
going to when they're coached by Steve Clifford, and they still have a chance, but they got a couple wins, and it looks like, I don't know. To me, I don't think they're definitely
well,
not going to catch the worst record at this point.
they're close. The Pistons. I mean, at least the worst in the East. The Pistons are at 16. The Magic are at 7 or 17.
Yeah, if
So
they slipping would be huge. If they're able to get down to, because again,
you have the
Minnesota's got
Rockets and
13,
Timberwolves. Yeah.
Houston's got 14. I don't think you're going to catch Minnesota at this point. I'm pretty confident that Minnesota is not going to
No,
win
but
4 games the rest
but
of
I
the
think
year.
but I think a fair goal would be just have a worse record than the Pistons. Like be the worst in the
Well, you got to
East.
be in the top three. You got to
Yeah.
be in the top three. If you're in the top three, you have the odds to get Cade Cunningham. And if they get Cade Cunningham and you get Jonathan Isaac back and Markel Fultz back healthy next year, all of a sudden that team is going to look a whole lot different. And everybody who's worried about the Magic being bad right now, it won't look so bad next year when you all of a sudden got a good, young, talented team. Like, I think it could be the most exciting time for Orlando basketball in probably a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm rooting for selfishly. Because even if you're in top three, you can get a Jalen Suggs. You can get. I mean, Jalen Green's going to be in the mix as well. They still may be able to get him at 4, depending how that goes. But you have the chance to get Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham is still the guy for me. That hasn't changed. I've said that on the spot a lot. And like we said, that could be that franchise-changing player that Orlando could be looking for. Going back to the other side of that, though, like we said, Denver's won 8 straight. The Clippers have won 4 straight. Utah is still at the top of the league. They're 8-10 in their last 10, or 8-2 in their last 10. Excuse me. They've got 39 wins. They're 2.5 up over Phoenix. Phoenix, like we said, is in sole possession of second right now. They're 2.5 back of Utah, and then of course you got Portland lurking at 6 as well. I mean, it's tough to really pick these teams right now, but I just want to really marvel at the top of this conference and all the moves that they've made. I mean, Phoenix to me, I thought has been the most underrated in the West the whole year. Utah keeps proving people wrong and being able to keep this run going, and Denver just looks so damn good with Aaron Gordon in the lineup. I mean, that and with the numbers that Michael Porter Jr. has been putting up recently, I mean, I think Denver's like 19-3 in their last 22 or something like that. And that even dates back to pre-Aaron Gordon trade. I know they stumbled at the beginning of the year, but to me, Jokic right now is the MVP. Um, I don't know, like projecting these playoff teams and projecting the conferences or projecting the bracket, I guess, if you almost, is going to be so difficult. I do think Lakers sans health, and by the way, I love that LeBron subliminal Instagram caption season is back when he's like, the thunderstorm is coming or whatever it was, something like that. But with him and AD coming back, I maintain that the Lakers are still the best team in the West if healthy, but this is going to be a bloodbath for the time for the rest of this. And I mean, and that's not even talking about Dallas, who I don't think is a bad team, and whoever gets in that playoff spot, whether it's Memphis, whether it's Golden State, whether it's New Orleans, whether it's San Antonio, like I'm less worried about them necessarily, but I mean, I don't know. There's the fact that one of these teams is going to take a first round exit is really, really saying something.
Yeah, it almost wonders if, like normally obviously with a first round exit, there comes some disappointment. And I think regardless of it happening, I think there would still be some disappointment, but like if you lose to Nuggets, a Lakers, a Clippers, like like say however it falls out, but like if you're the no, it's not going to work with the Nuggets. I was going to say you're the Nuggets and you go up against the Lakers in the first round. I mean, if you lose that, like
That might
I
be the
think
best first round series ever if both of those teams are fully healthy.
right, and part of me would be like, I think Nuggets fan would obviously still be disappointed, but there would be like an asterisk of yes, we lost in the first round, but we lost to the Lakers, the returning champs. Like I feel like it wouldn't suck as much as if like I don't know. Let me see if I could see real quick. Like if the for a horrible example, see, I still don't think that's a good example. I was gonna say the Sixers lose to the Celtics in the first round.
Oh, but
Um,
no, that would be a bloodbath.
well,
No, no, no. That would potentially lead to some wholesale changes. I mean,
yeah,
it also depends how you look, I guess. Like
yeah,
if one of these teams gets chunked and just gets like swept out by the other one, then I think okay, maybe we have a little concerns and we reevaluate a little bit. But I mean, all these teams have doubled down on their cores and doubled down on their young guys, and so that's the thing. It will be interesting to see where the Lakers fall because, like I said, that's going to be a hell of a first round series for whoever that 4 seed is, whether it's the Clippers, whether it's Denver, whether it's Phoenix, and that's why all these games are going to be so crucial. I mean, Denver's back is 1 game back of 3 right now. The Clippers are 1.5 back of Phoenix. I mean, that's why all these games matter. Obviously, a crucial win for the Clippers the other night in Phoenix. I mean, I'm just going to pull up the schedule. We got a couple of these coming up. I mean, so many of these games matter for playoff positioning.
mm-hmm.
And the Lakers have credit to them. They've done a good job of staying afloat. I mean, they're 4-6 without LeBron and Anthony Davis. They've got Brooklyn coming up next. That's actually tonight on ABC, so that could be a little bit of a tough one. Um, I mean, a couple of these are coming up. I mean, in the immediate future, Denver has Boston tomorrow. Utah's got Sacramento tonight. Phoenix has Washington tonight, so that should be wins for both of them. Portland as well as Detroit, that should be a win for them. So we'll see what happens. The Clippers have Detroit tomorrow. Again, that should be a win for them. Portland's got a tough one against Miami on the back-to-back. But there's going to be a couple of these games coming up. I mean, and they're essentially 2 game swings more or less
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
they play each other. And I mean, the job. I don't think again, I don't think the seeding necessarily matters because it's just about avoiding the Lakers, honestly. I think it's trying to avoid that 4 and 5. Like, I think getting a 1, 2, 3 in the West does significantly have more advantages to it, even more than that Eastern Conference where we talked about earlier, where,
Right.
I'm not, yeah, maybe you have to play Milwaukee or Philly in the second round, but realistically, like, you're going to have what? Two
Well,
hard series,
and
depending on how you
that's
do. Miami is the most to come out of the Eastern Conference. Where like if you're a 4 or 5 seed in the West, there's a chance you legitimately have to beat 3 great teams to come out of this conference.
Well, and that's kind of what I was thinking about as you were talking was like at the beginning of the episode, we're talking about the Bucks being like, man, you might just have to be okay with the fact that you're going to be in third place. Don't rush anybody back. You're going to be fine. And then in the West, if you're the Clippers, Suns, Nuggets, you're like, hey, we need all hands on deck. We need
Yeah.
to win out. We need to be in the second place. We don't want anything close to the Lakers at 5 or even, really 4. Like, you just don't want to be anywhere near that.
No, or
So,
3, honestly, because if the Lakers slip to 6, like if Portland
yeah.
jumps the Lakers, then all of a sudden you do want to be in 4. I'd rather play Portland than play the Lakers.
Then
So
then there's going to be some weird like okay, we need to lose the next 2 games so that we go up against the Yeah, but then you know what's going to happen too is if that happens and say the Suns, the Clippers, or even the Nuggets stay where they are, or the Clippers and Suns lose a few to make sure they're in the fourth to go up against Portland. That's going to get called out so fast. Oh, they didn't want the smoke with the Lakers. They made sure they were going up to the Trailblazers. And I think the last thing you want is an annoyed as hell Damian Lillard going into a playoff that he knows, oh, they chose me. They think they can beat me. They wanted us because we were the easier matchup. Hell no. So, you know,
yeah, I mean, even best case, I mean, if the Dallas stays at 7, you're still getting Luca.
yeah.
Like that's the thing is, even if you're a 2 seed, there's not like if you're the 1 seed in the West, I do think like I'd rather have Memphis or whoever wins a playoff game or a play-in game, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a genuine difference there. The same way that if I'm in the East, as long as I'm not four, I think my first round series should be all right. Like as good as these other teams are playing. Even I mean, I don't know. Boston, I just need to see them flick a switch they haven't flipped yet. I want to put Boston in that Miami category, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And even with Miami, I mean, Miami, a lot depends on Oladipo's health too. I like their
Yeah.
ceiling changes a lot. I don't ever want to rule Jimmy and Bam out, but I mean, Miami hasn't exactly been out here just putting all the naysay to bed either. They're going to need a lot from Kendrick Nunn in the meantime with Oladipo out. But I mean, that's going to be the question, I guess. But either way, I mean, the playoffs are just. I mean, we say all the time that the talent level in the NBA is higher than ever. I love that a lot of these teams are going for it and making these type of runs and not backing down from the competition. Like all these teams that we mentioned in the West, like I do think have legitimate chances to win the conference,
Yeah.
even with me thinking the Lakers are the favorite. I mean, I know everybody likes to dump on Utah too. That feels like they're the target of NBA Twitter, but they just keep winning. I mean, maybe again we need to see this come playoff time, but I don't feel that way with Utah the way I do with Cleveland, for example, or not with Cleveland, with the
Well,
Clippers.
and I would say with
Um,
Utah, we saw it last year, so we know they can do it. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, they lost in the first round, and I think that's the
Yeah.
question: is if they were to lose in the first round. But I think if they have the one seed, I don't think they're losing to Memphis in the first
No.
round.
No.
Even if they're two, I don't necessarily think they would lose to Dallas. I think they should beat Dallas. It's the question is what happens then when you go up against the Phoenix, when you go up against the Denver, when you go up against one of the LA teams. Like that's going to be the question for everybody, and that's going to be the question for Utah because listen, they could be the number one seed in the Western Conference, and they are one of the more feel good stories this year, especially given. I mean, look at where that team was last year with the bubble and Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell falling out, and people questioning if any of these guys could work together, if this was good, and then Mike Conley's contract being bad and overpaid and him being washed. Like, there's a lot to be excited about if you're Utah. They are one of the feel good stories of the NBA this year. But ask Milwaukee, that number one seed and that best regular season record means nothing if you flame out in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
that will be the true test for Utah and for all these other teams as well. Like I said, Denver's getting a lot of hype as well. Expect a target on their back sooner than later, but the way they're playing, they deserve it.
Well, yeah, they're I
It's
was
going to be
looking
fun.
I was looking it up. They are Denver is 15-3 in the month of March and April.
Yeah. I mean, they just everything is clicking right now for them. Jokic just makes everyone's life so much easier on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I guess for me, that's my last hot take, if you will, of the show. But I mean, we've mentioned a couple times, Nikola Jokic has got to be the MVP. And it comes down to injuries too. Like I think if Embiid had been healthy the whole time, it might have been a little different. But Jokic, the way they've surged, to me, with the number, the argument against Jokic before was that the numbers weren't coming on a good team. They're coming on a good team now. Like I
Yeah.
don't think there's much else to say there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know there'll be the Harden hype, but again, I think they can use this little bit of a break that he's doing for the hamstring as an argument against
Yeah.
him when Jokic has been in the whole time. So,
Yeah, I mean, Embiid's missed time. Obviously, LeBron has missed time. There will be a couple other guys in the mix as well. Steph has faded as the Warriors have faded. So
yeah, well,
um,
he might be a Laker soon, so.
that would be the ultimate heel turn. It really
Oh,
would be. It would be an
there's no
all-time
way he
like,
does it.
yeah. We say that. This is the NBA. Listen,
I know.
I didn't even know Paul George was available when he got traded to the Clippers. It was like, wait, what? He was
Like,
undrafted.
oh, he was tradable? We're trading him?
James Harden was on Houston. I don't think anybody last year would have had James Harden on Brooklyn, but here we are. Like the NBA changes all the time. But no, it doesn't change us here at the Driving Dish NBA podcast. And thank you, everybody, for supporting us, for listening to this episode. We appreciate you guys as always. Again, tweet us 50 piece. You got to tag Justin at Justin C on the air, me, Kevin at Refuse to Lose, and the Driving Dish NBA podcast Twitter account at Driving Dish NBA. Tweet us 50 piece, put it in a sentence, put it in a phrase, and we'll hit somebody up. And next week, we'll announce the winner of the $25 NBA store gift card. We'll have those to give away for a couple of weeks coming up as well. Listen to the podcast anywhere else you can find a podcast. Leave us a review on iTunes, Amazon Music, Google Play Store, Spreaker, TuneIn, Player FM, Stitcher. Also, I mean, we probably should have ended the show on this or maybe talked about it in the intro, but congratulations to our friend Justin Kuzart. obviously, whether you've been down for all 8 seasons, whether you just started listening, Justin is going to be MIA the next 2 weeks. It's because he is getting married. Unfortunately, we will not, in a normal planet, I will be at your wedding next week, and we're just going to take this all off because
Yeah.
everything is, But unfortunately, the pandemic got in the way. But Justin's going to be married. He's going to be on honeymoons. We obviously my girlfriend and I and everyone, all the listeners. I'm going to speak for the listeners this time.
Mm.
We are extremely excited for you guys, and like we said, well, I'm sure we'll have some highlights when you get back. But when
Oh yeah.
Justin is MIA for 2 weeks, I promise it's because I'm not getting a new co-host.
Yeah, I'll be in Cancun, very 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 drunk, and trying
So
to
tweet
find.
him. Get his real hot takes.
Yeah, ask me. Well, actually, here's the case on that though. If you tweet me and I respond in the next 2 weeks, no, I am in a ton of trouble because I was told I'm not allowed to turn the phone on the entire honeymoon, other than to take photos, obviously, because we're gonna be doing some, exploring and hiking and snorkeling and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So we want to take some photos. But other than that, I was told no work emails, no social media, just me and the fiance. So if you tweet me at any point, I know we got the 50 piece going on right now. So if you tweet me and I respond to that,
He's not
just
going to respond to it, but you got to tag him in it anyway.
but just know I'm gonna be in a lot of trouble if I do respond. So, maybe there's some drinks that happen, and then all of a sudden I'm on social media and I respond, and know I'm in trouble. So,
I'm drunk in Cancun. Ask me anything.
yeah, exactly. So, it should be fun though. We're excited for it, and it'll be good. And from a nothing you really cared to know standpoint, everybody that it's kind of surprising because I would say about a month ago when we were talking about this, we were kind of worried, even just to have family. So it's just immediate family, just mine and Nicole's. And she's got two grandparents, so they're going to be three grandparents, so they're going to be coming. And we were kind of worried about it. The grandparents are vaccinated, and we were like, nobody else is. It's gonna be weird. I don't know. And in between the last 3 weeks, the only people that are gonna be not vaccinated at the wedding are the two people getting married. So, um, you know, uh, uh, it makes us feel a little safer. We feel weird that we're the only ones that
Definitely.
haven't, but we're in line. It just we didn't want to be not feeling great from either versions of the shots, depending on how it would sit with us going into the wedding or potentially the honeymoon. So we are going to get our shots when we get back.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, get
Hmm.
it done. I got shot one. Definitely a great feeling. Even if it doesn't feel great in the
Yeah,
short term, it's definitely a
yeah.
great feeling overall. But yeah, again, congratulations to you guys. Thank you everybody for listening to the podcast. Rest in peace, DMX. Catch you next week.